Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Glenn Harrison, and welcome to this week's segment of Why. This is where we answer the why to some of the most common health-related questions I see every day. Today is toxicity. It's not really a why, but maybe it is, because many people that I see in my office, they're talking about they're either tired, they have chronic pain, or a lot of them have hormonal imbalances. Any of these scenarios could mean you're toxic. In fact, I would be very confident to say any of those scenarios would confirm you're toxic. So we live in a world where there's toxins everywhere in the food we're consuming, in the toxins leaking out of the storage the food storage packaging that we're eating. Depending on where we live, we can be in a higher toxic or lower toxic area. So location where we live plays a role. Now, to all of you that live out in the country, that doesn't mean you are in a toxic-free environment. In fact, some agricultural communities, they get exposed to more toxins than people living in urban centers, downtown or urban centers, because of the pesticide use and herbicide use. Highest rates of Parkinson's disease are actually in agricultural communities. So toxins are everywhere in our water, and we're steady making chemicals that are more resistant to breakdown. So then the body has to try to break down more aggressive, more resistant chemicals. So, and I have a few statistics here with regards to chemicals. Right now, there's 80,000 different chemicals in our environment. 80,000, okay? And there's 2,300 new ones being added every year. So the rate of our chemical exposure is going up and up and up, and we're seeing more and more chronic illness. Now, chronic illness isn't only due to toxins, but I would say, actually, I think it was the World Health Organization said 1/3 of all chronic disease is due to toxicity. So it's something we really got to put our eye on. So those are some of the places we get our toxins, and that's kind of the status we're in. So to go off from what I mentioned at the start, all of these symptoms, are they due to toxicity? Well, from what it looks like now, it's not a factor is if you're toxic or not. The question really is how toxic are you? So some of those symptoms, like I talked about, hormonal imbalances, chronic joint pain, we'll even see mood disorders being a problem, attention deficits, all of the skin disorders. That's another classic symptom of toxicity. Any of those, we could be very confident that there's a toxic problem. And one thing to know about toxicity is if we have lower energy, we are going to be a victim to probably having a lot of toxins in our body, because our liver is what cleans out a lot of these toxins out of our body, and it requires a lot of energy. So if we don't have enough energy to invest in our liver, what'll happen is our liver can't do its job and toxins build up. And if we are holding on to a lot of toxins, we have a high toxic load. Naturally, it takes energy from us. So if there's an energy problem, there's probably always a toxic problem, and this regardless of age. And if the liver is dealing with too many toxins, it can't deal with excess hormonal problems. And usually most hormonal problems are due to excess and imbalance. So now the liver can't flush those hormones out of the body, and we'll see all sorts of disorders like polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, fibroids. So toxicity compromising liver function really throws the body in for a tailspin. And these things, and I see it every day. Probably I would say almost every client that comes into my office, there's some level of toxicity we have to work on. So that's kind of what to look for with toxic symptoms. Where they come from is another layer. And one thing I didn't mention, and I talked about foods and packaging, airborne chemicals, where we live, but never ignore what you put on your skin. Within just a few seconds, anything you're putting on your skin will get into your bloodstream. So be very cautious of the things you put on your skin. Most stores where you're buying products from, there's going to be a huge list of chemicals most of us can't even pronounce, and they'll end up in your bloodstream. So be very cautious on what you put in your skin. So in a nutshell, we're getting exposure from chemicals everywhere, and our best defense is reducing the amount of exposure as much as we can, and also there are products to use to start flushing the liver. Okay, so the liver is one, but we shouldn't have to use those a long time. You know, clean your home, clean your liver, clean your body, and keep it clean. Um, Another thing with regards to toxicity, another way I focus on the liver, but also the skin. Don't ignore your skin. The skin is a natural organ, is the largest detox organ, and the pores should open, and you should be able to sweat some of this stuff out. Now, if you cannot sweat, because I see this quite frequently, if you don't sweat, or just you sweat less than the people you know, chances are you are going to be holding on to a lot of toxins. You're going to be a toxic sink. So when I see patients like that where they can't sweat, that's one of our goals. We got to get the metabolism up to be able to sweat, to start dumping these toxins. So it's a big picture, but it leads to a lot of chronic illness. So I hope this was helpful. Give you some insight in what you can do and what to look for and what to pay attention to when it comes to toxins, because it is a problem and it builds with time. And never forget, as I mentioned, if there's an energy deficiency, always be on the lookout to your toxic exposure. And then look at product lines that you're using on your skin. That's shampoo, toothpaste, all of that stuff will cause a problem. And if you have any questions about, some better or worse product lines, by all means, put a comment below this video, and I'd be more than happy to answer that for you. So with that being said, I'm Dr. Glenn Harrison, and I look forward to talking to you next day, where we're going to answer why to another health-related question. So with that being said, have a great day, and we'll talk to you next time.